Yes, all right, Barbara, we are live on our Facebook page and YouTube channel.
Okay,
I'm so happy to see you in our session. Thank you very much for accepting the invitation and being our guest speaker.
thank you.
How are you doing, Barbara?
I'm doing good. Yeah, thank you for inviting me, for letting me be part of this.
Wonderful. So let's wait few seconds. Just our viewers can receive notifications and will join
Okay,
us soon. So we
okay.
take some time. Oh, already our viewers join us. Good morning, everybody. Bishkek American Center is welcoming you. Thank you very much for joining our session. And today you will learn more about National Native American Heritage Month. And it's my great pleasure to introduce our guest speaker today, Barbara Taylor Ornelas. She is Master Navajo Weaver. Thank you very much once again, Barbara. I think we can start our session with your
Okay,
wonderful presentation.
all right. Okay, all right. So I'm going to introduce myself first,
Mm-hmm.
and then, because my who I am is on the slides. So I'm Barbara Ornelas. Barbara Ornelas yun siya kabahin siya ng toy headlini pasishchi hat naga ne tashinan ashchi ni tashiche beat out sananishna. So I said, my name is Barbara Ornelas. I am born for the Edgewater people, and my I'm sorry. I'm born of the Edgewater people, born for water that flows together. And then my grandfather's clans are one who walks around and Red Bottoms people. And then I am a fifth generation Tuber Hill Weaver. Yeah. Next. Okay. So this is my like I said, I'm a fifth generation, and so this is my second and third generation. The small woman that you see on my right is my great great grandmother. That was my mother's grandmother, and her name was Sansoy Bitsit. She didn't have an English name, but that was her Navajo name. And then her daughter is the one on the left. That's my grandmother. That's my mother's mom. And then her name was Susie Tom. And then so they represent the second and third generation of our weaving family. And then my maternal grandmother was Nellie Pashlakai Teller, and she did all kinds of styles. My grandmother Susie and my great grandmother were two Great Hill weavers, and but what my grandmother, I call her my Nolly. My Nolly made different styles of weaving. She didn't stay with one particular design. She did all kinds of style. So next. So we have just seven generations of weavers. The top picture that you see is my whole family. Is my mother, my sister Linda, and myself, my son, and my daughter. And my son and my daughter represent the sixth generation. And then my granddaughter standing over on my right is Roxanne, and she represents the seventh generation. So we have, generations of us weaving and learning together and teaching each other and yeah. So this is my family. Next. So we start off with our materials, and which we work with wool, which comes from the sheep, and so we card we shear the sheep, and then we wash the wool and make it really nice and clean, and then we card the wool with carding tools, and then we spin. See, my mother and my aunt in the purple, they're both spinning, and my aunt, the one that's sitting towards the front of the picture, she's carding the wool with a carding tool. And then my other aunt over here is also spinning. And then with the spinning that they do, then the rug that's in the middle is what we come up with. Okay, next. So this is my work, and I'm a professional. I've been a professional weaver for the last 40 years, and I've won two best of shows at different, and four best of shows. I'm sorry, at different Indian markets, and I've pretty well known for my work. And this is just samples of my work. And the one on my right is probably the largest piece I've ever done. And I did it with my older sister Roseanne, and it took us 2.5 years of actual weaving the whole thing. It took 9 sheared wool sheep, and it took us 9 months to prepare the wool, and then it took us 2.5 years to weave it. And we were really lucky that we found somebody who really loved it enough to buy it from us. So this is one of our pride and joy that my sister and I did. Okay, so our weaving history is, they always say that Navajos learn how to weave from the Pueblos or from the Spanish or from this and that, and they date our weaving history back to like the 1700s when the Spanish came over, or, the Pueblos who have been here forever. But they found during one of the archaeological digs, they found a piece of weaving that was made out of plant material, and it was a dress. And they carbon dated that piece to the 1400s. So Navajo weaving has been around longer than before the Spanish came, before the Pueblos were in the neighborhood. And so we've always had our weaving before all the history people came around. And Navajo women, especially children, were very high prize. When the Spanish came, they would steal the little kids because they were good at weaving, and instead of using floor looms to create weavings for them, they use Navajo techniques to make pieces. And and there was a lot of slave trades and stuff like that went on in the history, and so a lot of our people got stuck doing serapes and different styles of Hispanic weaving. And but they always stayed true to their beliefs, like the dresses that you see them wearing. They had four lines. They put in four lines to represent the four sacred mountains, and they always made sure the dresses were dark, black and blues, and with a little bit of red here and there, because that the red is like the blood of our people. And the four lines represent the four sacred mountains that surrounds Navajo land. And the dresses were dark because they would sneak out at nighttime to try to run back to their homeland, and so the dresses, they really have a lot of meaning behind them. And they were able to create beautiful pieces when they got home, from escaping. And there was a period in Navajo weaving where we had serapes and different styles of almost like Hispanic weaving, just for a little bit, and then of course that died down and something else came about. But that was part of the slave trade trade that the Navajos had to endure. So, next. Okay. So this is the dress I was talking about. See how they have the lines there that represent the four sacred mountains, and then the crosses that you see there, we call them Spider Woman crosses. And we believe that Spider Woman was the one who taught the Navajo people how to weave. She was one of our deities, one of our gods. And she was a weaving god. She was looking at a spider, and the spider was weaving a web, and she wanted to learn how to do that. And so she asked the spider, how do you weave these things, and he goes, you just learn by looking, so she kind of found these materials, and she started making weavings like how the spiders do it and stuff. And then she took it to, the weaving guides and said, "This is what I came up with." And they told her, "We're going to bless you with more, we're going to bless you with a lot more, so that you'll be able to give this gift to the Navajo women." And so, and that's how our weaving came about. She went to the four sacred mountain. From the first mountain, she got wool. I'm sorry, she got lumber, wood, to make the looms. And then from the second mountain, she got um, colors like plants and dyes and stuff to dye the wool. And then from the third mountain, she got designs from the thunder gods, because the thunder gods live in the third sacred mountain. And then the last mountain, she got prayers and songs that go with the pieces. And so she put it all together. And so when you have a loom, I'll show you my loom. Oh, I don't know if you can see it. Can you see it?
One second, please.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay. So the bottom part here represents the bottom, the earth beam. The top part up here represents the moon beam. And then you have light over here, and you have day on this side. So there's night and day. And then the strings that you see here represent rain. And you have the top bar that you see here represents the male ring. And then the one that's attached here represents the female ring. And as you're weaving here, this is, what your earth looks like. This is what your, in Navajo, we call it hojo. Hojo means in beauty or in peace. And so we always make sure that, our hojo area is well maintained and taken care of. And so a lot of the materials that she put into this, and the loom and everything is traditional from the very beginning. We just incorporated more modern things like, we put turnbuckles on here, and we work with metal bars and stuff like that. And before, it used to be um, a wood bar here, and then the rope on top, and but we adapt to where you can use regular weaving materials, and so that's how we the Spider Women put together a loom for us, and she taught us how to do it and stuff. And the picture on my left is a picture of myself and my sister Linda, and we were part of the weaving conference in Cusco, Peru. And so we wore our traditional dresses, and my dress has Spider Woman crosses on it because I believe I'm Spider Woman, And then my sister has her design is lightning, because she's our family spokesperson. She's the one who really talks for us, and she's the lightning in our family. So that's why our dresses are woven that way. Next. So back in 1863 or somewhere around there, the tribe wanted to take I'm sorry, the government wanted to take over the our Navajo land, and because our land is a lot in Arizona, and some in New Mexico, some in Utah, and just a little smidget in Colorado. And so we had this huge land that they wanted to kind of take over and stuff. So they rounded up all these Navajos, and they moved them all the way down to Fort Sumner. It's Bosco Redondo. And our Navajo people had to walk from Arizona all the way down to almost close to the Texas border. And it took them 55 days to walk all the way over there. In the meantime, while they were walking there, a lot of the children were getting stolen as they were, going down there, and they were prisoners of war, and for 5 6 years, they finally were let go, and they signed a treaty in 1868, and so they were allowed to come back. When they came back, and a lot of the but while they were there, a lot of the weavers were um, commissioned by soldiers, that was guarding them, to unravel their army issued blankets and reweave them Navajo style, because the army blankets were real flimsy and they weren't woven really well. But Navajo weaving is real tight, because you have to have a comb and hit it to make it pack down as much. And they like the Navajo blankets because they lasted longer, and stuff. So, and I think that's how the Navajo women really survived and took care of their family while they were in camp. And I'm sure they probably got extra ration, and while they were there and stuff. And when they came back, when they were allowed to come back, they came back to their homeland, and their homeland was, their houses were burned, all their peach trees, all their fruit trees were burned and stuff. And literally, they all had to start from scratch again, But it was the weaving that kept our people going. Navajo women wove dresses to make sure that they had clothes on. They wore, and they made sure that they had blankets, and they wove blankets to cover their houses, so that the cold air doesn't come in or whatever. And then they learned that they can trade their pieces for food and for animals, and whatever they need and stuff. And that's how trading posts started to pop up on the reservations, and then weavers started to make pieces for them after when they came back, and the trading posts started to sell them. And that's when they kind of separated the weavers, saying that, okay, you're in the Two Gray Hill area, you're only going to weave Two Gray Hill weavings, you're not going to weave anything else. And it was really the traders that came up with all these different styles that they wanted Navajos to weave, But Navajo weavers are just rebels, we were told we can only weave this, but we always skirted the line and make sure that we put in our own style, our own way of doing things, and then because of our weaving, we totally survived this really hard, bad time. So, so this is the trading post that I was talking about. Right, at the turn of the century, there was probably over 200-300 trading posts that pop up on this whole reservation, and they were doing a thriving business. They were basically taking the weavings from the weavers and only giving them so little, and they really dictated how the weavers were going to make their pieces and how they're going to sell them, and then they came up with this brilliant idea that they're going to sell the weavings by the pound, so that weavers figured out a way to make them heavy. They would wet the pieces when they're done and put them under the ground and let the sand soak in, so that that the weaving will weigh heavier when they took it in, and just stuff like that. And then they decided to they only want to work with certain colors, and all that stuff. And they had the weavers in a pigeonhole, which is really really hard. And the top left trading post that you see there, and that was from my area. That's Two Gray Hill Trading Post, and that's where my dad was a trader for about almost 40 years. So he grew up at the store, I mean, I'm sorry, he worked at the store, but we had an apartment right behind the store where we lived, and we had people come from all over the world. And they would come, and they wanted to see Navajo weavers, and stuff, And my dad would tell them they're busy at home weaving. They don't have time to sit out here, and do the weaving. But we had so many people come, and my mom would demonstrate weaving for them, and they it was a really really cool thing, to see. So so right when the Navajos came back from Bosco Redondo, they became um, they adapted back to being who they were. They replanted the peach trees. They rebuilt their houses. They planted all the corn and the squash and the beans and all the staples that they need. They remade their lives completely, and they were able to. Um, they were allowed so many animals from the government, and so and their herd just kept growing and growing and growing, and because there were some ranchers that didn't like Navajo people having all this animals, they said that because there's a drought, there's this and that, and then the Navajo chiefs are causing all this. And so the government came and they said that we're going to have to reduce some of your livestock. And so a lot of Navajo families like had over 100 heads of sheep, and they had to slaughter all of them down to like they could only have like 30 of them. And so it really put the Navajo people, it really took them back because they depend in Navajo we say the bebeina, and that means sheep is life. And we use every part of the sheep. I mean, we use the wool to make blankets and stuff, and we use the animals for food. I mean, we use every part of the sheep. Nothing goes to waste, and it was very very hard. And I remember my sister and I did a book on Navajo weaving, and we remember visiting the older weavers in the book, and we asked them about the livestock. And even to this day, and it's been about 60 years maybe, they still cry because they remember how hard it was to deal with slaughtering all your animals and seeing all that food go to waste, and and just how much hardship it brought the Navajo people, all because some ranchers didn't wanted their own grazing area, and we were our land was our own grazing area, and they didn't like the fact that I think Navajo people had this huge land, and you know what can you do? So next. So why Navajo weaving endures? Okay, so a lot of it is what I said before, Hojon, your balance, your your Navajo way of life. K means family. Hojon means in beauty, in peace and balance. And you have to have all that for the Navajo weaving to endure. You have, like when I was real small, my grandmother, both my grandmothers were very good teachers, and they both told me never say anything bad about your loom when you're sitting in front of it. Never don't weave when you're angry. Don't weave when you're sad, because your weaving takes on your own personality, and we all believe that our weaving has spirit, and so you don't want to hurt their feelings, and so you have to have that balance. That's why you have to have hojon to sit in front of your loom to work, and I think our weaving endures because everything is woven into, all the weaving is woven into our lives, and we can't be Navajo without our weaving, and to me, weaving has saved our Navajo people from everything. Every time there's a huge crisis happen, whatever, it was always the Navajo weavers out front, weaving and, enduring and preparing wool and weaving and selling and bringing and the animals back, bringing horses, bringing cows, and it really, I remember my grandpa saying that, keep weaving, keep weaving, it's going to take care of you. And someday, it's going to help you take care of your children. And he was right. I really, really believe that. So, okay, next. Okay. So this is why we strive for the four values of our lives. The value we hold for life itself, like our original, our balance is what we need to keep weaving, to keep harmony in our lives, and our work is, to me, it's a gift from the weaving gods. And I'm going to respect it. I'm going to respect my loom. I'm going to respect my tools. Everything I use, you like when you're weaving, you have a comb and you're hitting with it. You just don't toss your comb. You put it down gently, and you have a batten that separates your warp, and you use that. You never take it out to hit anybody with it, because, and then my grandmother always told me that your comb and your batten are your weapons. That's what sustains you. That's from hunger, from anger, from sadness, from, and all these things that help keep all those negatives away, and he goes, these are your weapons to help you move forward, and then, our views, our family is, our extended family, friends, communication, communal relationship, but we all first depend on our families to come together and help each other, and I remember my mom and her sisters getting together and they help each other prepare all their wools. I remember my grandmother being a part of the whole thing, and now, it's our turn, and my sister and I get together, and then my kids get the four of us, we get together and we prepare our wool, and we make sure that we're doing, what our ancestors did before, and, and we move it forward to where we have a lot of Navajo students that we teach, and we have a lot of non-native people who we teach also, but they become family, you know. And so it's all one big happy family that we depend on each other, And then my sister and I, 22 years ago, we became teachers. We decided we wanted to teach weaving, and we've had so many students through the 22 years, and and we've taught some students that are really great weavers now. They're accomplished weavers, they're award-winning weavers, and they're teaching that their Navajo weaving to other students, and it's just been a real joy to do that. And with all that combined, the four values that we have, we live a good life, and we share our ideas. We don't My sister and I don't hold anything back. We share everything that people want to know. I think the only thing we don't share is our songs and our prayers, because that belongs in our family. And we have a lot of Navajo students that come to us and they say, my grandmother was a weaver. My mom never learned, and so we tell them, go back, go talk to your grandmother, go talk to your aunts and stuff. I'm sure somebody knows your songs, somebody knows your prayers, just learn, research, and some do, which is really interesting, you know, because, like a lot of the older weavers, some can't weave anymore, but they love to talk about it. They love to talk. They love to share their stories and stuff. And I tell our young weavers, like, go back, talk to your elders, learn from them. Yeah. So next. So, so I would remember I was talking about Spider Woman before, and we always pay an homage to Spider Woman in each of our pieces. And so it's always the very last line of our infill color, like the brown that you see there. And you see that brown line that goes all the way out and comes back in. I don't know if you can see it on top. And right there, yes. And that's just to pay homage to Spider Woman. In Navajo, we call it Jinteen. That means a path out. And it's, you know how a spider weaves a web, and then it leaves a trail, and then it weaves another web, and then it leaves a trail, and then it weaves another web. That line is his line, his path line, to where all his webs is connected. And by the time he passes or she passes, all her webs are connected just by that one line. And it's the same for us. This is our line that connects us to the next piece and the next piece. And and it's it's to honor Spider Woman is why we do that. So yes. Okay, so the rug that you see on my left, the really large piece, that was woven by my great grandmother and my grandmother. Remember that first picture that you saw, second, third generation picture? This is the piece that they did. That was behind them. Yeah, so one of the collectors bought it and then brought it back. It's near where we live in New Mexico, and it's in a museum right now. And so they were able to bring it back, and my mom had a picture, so the picture went with the piece, and but this is my legacy. This is where I come from, and the piece on the right, my right, that's my older sister Roseanne's work. And you can kind of see the family resemblance in each piece. And when you look at it, it's just like, wow, this is just amazing. Just, the designs, everything. But everything you see there is math. Everything you see there is math. And you um, count your work, and you figure out how much pattern you could put in each piece. And it's like once you figure out the border, once you figure out the conchos that go on the side, all the middle inside of the diamonds are kind of like putting in a puzzle. And you kind of fit weavings in together to I mean patterns in together to fit in the patterns into the pieces, and it's all math. If you can figure out the numbers, it's much easier to figure out the patterns. Next. So this is kind of like we kind of broke down the what it takes to make a piece, and the shearing, if the sheep is cooperating about 2 hours. I mean, for two sheep, it takes about 4 hours to take the shear the sheep, and then it takes about 35 hours just to clean the wool, because you have to fluff it up, and you have to wash it and dry the lanolin out of the wool and stuff, and then the carding it takes about 60 hours, and near blending colors, because in Navajo and in Tugra Hill style, we use everything natural from the sheep. The only thing we dye is the black. Okay, so the dark brown and the white are natural from the sheep. So you mix brown and white together to get light browns, and it depends on how much brown you put in or how much white you put in. You can get different shades. And then the same with the grays. Once you dye the black, you can mix it with the white, and you get different shades of grays. And that's what we call blending the colors. And then spinning the wool takes a long, long time, because you have to first draft the wool, and then you have to do the first spin and then, or second spin, I'm sorry. And then the final spin is the third spin. So you have to like spin it like 3 times just to get it to find the way you want it, you know. And then spinning the warp, because you have to overspin the warp to make it stronger than the regular wool that you just spun. And then loom construction, you know, we don't do the loom. We have, you know, our dads and our husbands, our brothers, they make the looms and stuff. Like my sister's husband, he does all our looms now. And so we just tell him what size we want, you know, and he'll make the size for us. So it takes them about 18 hours just to construct a loom. And then it takes us 24 hours just to warp the loom. And depending on the size, you know, or I'm doing a 3 feet by 2 feet. I don't know what that is in metrics. And then warping the loom and prepping. Yeah, prepping means you have to make sure that the your warp is spaced exactly the same. You know, like you count your warps all the way to the middle, and you have to measure here, and they have to measure the same. Your middle has to be right in the middle. Otherwise, you have to move things around to get it where you want it. So that takes a long time, and you have to be very, very careful so you don't break anything. You don't want to break any warps or anything like that. So the total for the whole, you know, the whole process is, oh, and then it's like 2,000 hours to just to weave the piece from start to finish. And then, you know, so total is like 22,321 hours, 9 to 11 months of work, you know. And then for me, I could probably market that piece at like 25,000, you know. But then if I take it to a show, you know, I had to pay hotels, I got to pay booth fees, and I got to, you know, so the out comes out from everything, you know, and it ends up to where you're just making barely minimum wage. But because you know, you love what you do, you just do, you know, and you want to keep your weaving strong, you know. I don't do it to get rich or anything like that. I do it because it gives me peace. It gives me my balance. It keeps me in Hojo. Yeah. So, like I said, my sister and I started teaching 22 years ago, and I kind of got roped into teaching. You know, they asked me to come to this school to give a lecture on Navajo weaving, and I'm like, yeah, sure, I could do that. You know, so I went there and I gave my lecture and stuff, and afterwards they were introducing all the teachers that were teaching there. And then my friend Heather, who had asked me to come, said, and this is Barbara Teller Ornelas, and she'll be teaching weaving here next year. So that's how I end up teaching weaving, you know, and stuff. And my sister and I go all over the place teaching. We usually do at least 17 classes per year. And we've gone from California all the way to New York and Toronto, Canada, and you know, and we teach everywhere, and we teach non-native people because a lot of people are saying you shouldn't teach non-native people, it belongs to the Navajo people. I agree with that. I agree with that. I agree that that Navajo people should know their weaving, but you need allies. You know, I mean, we Navajo weavers are dealing with copy people who are copying us. You know, they come up with these names like Navajo inspired, and you know, and they were getting weavings from Russia and from Pakistan and from, you know, Mexico and from all these places that pretend to be Navajo weaving, and we have to, you know, we're battling with those people, and it's very, very hard. And so my sister and I teach the non-native people because we tell them that we're only teaching you the basics and we want you to learn how to do this, but you can't sell them as Navajo weavings because you're not Navajo, you know. And then we, you know, and so every time any of these companies pop up, we always tell our non-native students, like, we need your help, here, and so they become allies. They could become our fighters, because just the look of our skin and who we are, we can't really fight on our own. So we have to have allies, and then, but I think the most joy that my sister and I have is teaching um, Navajo students. Like the first picture on the left is one of our really talented weaver, Velma, and her daughter, Ashley. And she's, when she first came to us in 2010, she goes, I want to learn how to weave. I want to learn my culture. And when it comes to weaving, I want to be able to teach other people. I want to work in a museum. I want to, do all these things. And, through the years, we kept teaching her, kept teaching her. She kept taking our classes, and we taught her how to be teachers. Now she's a teacher. She teaches other Navajo students, and she works at the Herd Museum. And she just got she was interning at the Herd Museum for a while. Now she got hired to be one of the curators, and she's working with weavings, and she's taking care of the weavings at the herd, and we're so proud of her. She really became our pride and joy. And her daughter is in college, and then her sons all both learn how to weave, and her other son, the oldest one, learn how to build looms. So when she teaches, her son makes all the looms for them and the tools, and yeah, so it's a continuing thing, and it's really amazing what she's accomplished. And then the two on the right, they're sisters, and they came to our class. And again, it was a there was a broken circle for them, and their great grandmother was a weaver, but their mom wasn't a weaver. Their grandmother wasn't even a weaver, but they wanted to learn, and they really took to it. They really understood, and so we teach students like that. Like we had um, a weaving class at the Navajo Nation Museum in Window Rock, Arizona, and they told us that we're going to have 15 people, and these are all mid-careers weavers, so we're expecting younger weavers and stuff, but we ended up with like real young weavers and weavers that are like 70, 80 years old. And these people have worked for the government in like Washington, D.C., and they came home after they retired, and they wanted to relearn how to weave and stuff. And we ended up with 22 students in the class, and one of them was our reigning Miss Navajo. And so two of them were Miss Navajo. So we were really proud of that class. We're able to share a lot of our experience as Navajo weavers with them. So, next. So my sister and I did a couple books, and we went all over the Navajo reservation. We went from one end to the other and finding these weavers, and we found about 25, 30 weavers, and we highlighted old weavers, young weavers, weavers in their prime, weavers that are just starting out. We told their story. And there's a lot of books on Navajo weaving, but there's no books about Navajo weaving by Navajo weavers. This is the very first book ever that was done, and like the other books, they had to have interpreters. They would go into these people's homes, and then they would put their own spin on what the people were saying. And so when we went, we were able to interview them in Navajo or in English, whatever they wanted. And we told their story. We didn't add anything to them. What they told us went into the book, and we're really, really proud of that book. And we're especially excited because it's going to go into a second printing pretty soon. So, and then the other one, the Navajo textile book, my sister Linda wrote on that, and she wrote with another weaver and two scholars, and they went to the Denver Art Museum. The Denver Art Museum had a collection called the Crane Collection, and there's like over 400 weaving, and they only picked 60 of them to put into the book, and she was able to write. Um, so that's her first book, and then we did the second one. And our third book just came out, and it's called How to Weave a Navajo Rug. It's a how-to, and it's I have it here, but it's packed. It's packed with my stuff. Anyway, so we through the years of teaching, we started off with just one little tiny page and about how to, and by the time 20 years came by, we had 25 pages and stuff. And we would get feedbacks from our weavers and saying they didn't understand this part. Could we elaborate more on this part, and stuff. And so we were able to put all this together, and we created a how-to book, and it just tells you a little bit about our Navajo history, and it also tells you about how to do from start to finish a piece. So we're really really proud of it. It just came out in October 1st. So, and they can find it on Amazon and Barnes and Noble and Sheffer's Printing. Yeah. So
Interesting.
I think that's it, right? That's the end of.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, that's the end of it. Yeah. So if anybody has any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer. And
Thank you very much, Barbara, for the incredible presentation. It was really interesting, and I was mesmerized by this beauty. It's
mhm,
it's it's so beautiful,
thank
and
you.
also I noticed that it's very similar to our culture, Kyrgyz culture. The Navajo culture is very similar and
Yeah,
identical.
I totally. When I was there, and 3 or 4 years ago, and it was amazing to me how similar we are. Our our culture is basically the same. The only thing that was different, I think, is our language. And I was really privileged to meet a lot of your people, and I made a lot of friends, and I got to experience being in a yurt, and I saw the horses and the horse races,
Right,
and it was an amazing experience. Yeah.
right. And I really like the philosophy Hojo. Now I
Yeah.
learned this word.
Yeah. Yeah, Hojo.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah. And then
Barbara.
for our family, you say a.
Mm,
Yeah, that's family. Yeah.
okay, give him. Yeah.
A. Yeah.
How to say thank you in Navajian
Na-
language?
Navajo. Navajo.
Navajo,
Yeah.
Navajo.
Yeah.
Oh,
You say ahehe.
ahehe,
Uh-huh. Ahehe. How
ahehe,
do you say?
Barbara, ahehe.
Yeah, how do you say your language?
Ah, rahmat, chong
Ah,
rahmat.
oh, yeah. I remember
Uh,
them saying the Russian thank you.
Спасибо.
Спасибо. That's what it was. Yeah, yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Barbara received a lot of questions, and one by
Sure.
one I will ask them and receive. Oh wow, my grandma still uses this technique to create
Mhm.
pillows with national ornaments. This is such a great presentation. Thank you. Spider Woman is a new phrase that I've learned.
Uh,
Where do you get the inspiration?
where do I where do I get the inspiration? Just my surroundings. I go out every morning and I say my prayers to the Creator and to the holy people, to the Four Sacred Mountain and Spider Woman. Every day I ask for blessings and for love and to be thankful, and stuff. And especially in this really scary, dangerous world right now that we're living in, and it's touched all of us. My people are suffering so bad from the COVID epidemic, and
Mm,
you have to just keep saying your prayers. I get inspiration from my grandmothers, my mom and my sister. I always say that I learned the myth the legends and the stories from my grandmothers. I learned the basic weaving from my mom, and I learned the techniques and design from my sisters.
Mm. Oh, so does it come from generation to generation? There's no
Yes.
schools. It
Right.
comes
Yeah, it's old
from.
school. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Barbara.
You're welcome.
The next question. You have visited Kyrgyzstan and you can compare how the weaving in Kyrgyzstan similar or different from the Navajo weaving.
I can't. Let's see. I can't remember seeing. I think it was different, right? It was a little different than on ours. Um, I know that like when I do a connection, I'll say
Mm-hmm,
when I do a connection here,
mm-hmm,
right here, I connect them together, and I know that you guys don't. You leave them open.
mm,
You connect one or two, but they're like little gaps in
mm-hmm,
between. Yeah, I thought that was really amazing how that
mm,
how that happens, and stuff. But I think working with the wool and everything's all basically the same, and I was gifted a small piece when I was there,
mm-hmm.
so yeah. And
Yes.
one of the ornaments, one of the
Yeah.
ornaments and stuff, and went to the felting
Mm-hmm.
places, and amazing how they do all that. Yeah, and I was gifted a pair of shoes, which I love. I don't wear it as often because I don't want it to go. I don't want to ruin it.
Thank you, Barbara. The next question. What does Navajo mean?
Okay, it's a Spanish word. I think my father-in-law, who was Mexican, told me that it means people with knives. Yeah, but we don't call ourselves Navajo. We call ourselves Dene. Yeah, Dene.
Then.
Yeah, Dene, and it means the people.
Mm,
Yeah. And then when you talk about other people, you say do Dene Eba. That they're not of the people. Yeah,
mhm,
yeah.
mm. Thank you,
Mhm.
Barbara. The next question. How the National Native American Heritage Month is celebrated in the United States?
Okay, I'm sorry. Read it one more time.
Oh, I'm sorry. How the National Native American Heritage Month is celebrated in the United States?
Mm, um, there's a lot of powwows, and there's a lot of people getting together and stuff. And we always used to have a weaving show at the Herd Museum to commemorate the Heritage Month. And there's always like jewelry shows, beadwork shows, and stuff like that. But because of COVID,
Mm,
nobody's doing anything this year. But
mhm,
we do. There's a lot of like online stuff that they're doing, and we don't celebrate Thanksgiving, which a lot of people here do,
mhm,
but we
mm,
we we get together as a family and we eat and stuff, but we don't call it Thanksgiving. We just call it our family gathering. And
mm.
yeah.
I see. Thank you very much, Barbara.
Mhm.
Do the boys also participate in weaving master
Oh yeah,
classes?
yeah. My son is a great weaver. I taught him when he was 11, and he
Mhm,
came to me and he said, "I want to learn how to do this," But we've always had men
mhm,
weavers, and because
mhm,
my dad worked at the trading post, these guys will come in with their weavings, and my dad would ask them, whose name do you want me to put on there? And they'd say, well, my mom or my sister, or, because back then there was a stigma against men
mhm,
weavers, but, and then my mom and my aunt always had this running joke to where they would say that there's a lot of Navajo weavers that are real famous that have never woven a rug in their lives because their sons or their husbands or somebody wove them.
mhm,
But nowadays, nobody cares. They put their
mhm,
name on it. And there's a lot of real famous male weavers and they're, creating paths for themselves. Just like my son, he
mhm,
doesn't do two gray hills only. He does other styles. He does like miniatures and all kinds of stuff. And he gets inspired by his comic books, like
Oh.
Marvel comics, and he titles them that way and stuff. And back then, when I was doing it, you never titled your piece. It was always just a two gray hill rug, two gray hill weaving, and then that was it. But nowadays, they have all these beautiful titles that go with it, and it's just wonderful because the naval weavers were really pigeonholed into making just one style, just one
Mhm.
style. You can't do more than that, But nowadays, there's no more trading posts that are forcing weavers to weave just one thing. Weavers are just weaving all kinds of stuff and just, whatever they want to do. And I've even branched out. I'm doing other
Mm.
styles and it's a lot of fun to work
Yeah,
with different colors and stuff. Yeah.
that's interesting to observe how the design is changing. Yes,
Yeah.
interesting. Thank you very
Mhm.
much, Barbara.
Mhm.
And the next question: are there Native American arts and crafts festivals in the United States?
Yes, so many of them. One of the biggest one is in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and it's called Santa Fe Indian Market, and it always happens in the third weekend in August, and it's probably the one of the biggest and the best place you can look for Indian art. There's probably, I would say, at least 1,500 native artists that come, and you have to get jured in, and literally you have to, you know, send pictures and then you have to get approved to be in the show. And I've won Best of Show there twice. So it's a really big deal to have. And then the other ones are the Herd Museum. Theirs is always the first weekend in March. And again, maybe 1,000 artists and big, huge gathering that they have, and each of the festivals they have powwows, they have dances, they have fashion shows, and they have film festivals that go with them, and all kinds of activities and everything related to Native arts. And then Idle Jorg is in Indiana, Indianapolis, Indiana, and theirs is always in June. And then there's Red Earth in Oklahoma, Oklahoma City, and theirs is usually in, I think it's May, I think. And then the Native Treasure, which also is um, in Santa Fe, and theirs is in May. And then there's an archery um, show in Los Angeles at the Archery Museum. And Museum of Man used to have one. I don't know if they still have it, but there's so many of them. A lot of the museums have like the one in Flagstaff, the Flagstaff Museum, Northern Arizona Native Museum. They have a Navajo show, and then they have a Hopi show, and then they have a Zuni show. So they're like they concentrate on one tribe, and they highlight them. It's really really interesting. Theirs is usually like around July, somewhere around there. Yeah,
That's interesting.
it's
How about the competitions between weavers?
it's
Do you
really
have?
nice. It's really really nice, and I'm for a long time I was kind of like the corner market on winning ribbons and stuff, but lately I've been kind of pushed to the side, which is really nice. My sister's been feeding me a lot, so and my both my kids, they award winning, but there's so many weavers now, so many weavers, like Tanaba Natani, she's an excellent weaver. D.Y. Begay, Brenda Spencer, and so many. There's so many of Sarah Paul Begay. There's so many of them. I just it's just amazing how we've all like a lot of, like Mary Lou Schultz and DY and I and Kelly Musial and a few other people. We're like the front runners and trying to break this weaving thing open to where, we wanted to
Mhm.
do whatever we wanted to do instead of being pigeonholed, and stuff. And because of our hard work, a lot of the younger ones are coming in and they're just blossoming. They're just amazing what new styles are coming up with. Like in our new book, we highlight a lot of weavers and just say, if you want a piece from them, we give them their emails or their phone numbers or whatever. Because we're all in it together. We're all going to help each other, and because of us, because of them,
Yes.
never weaving will survive.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes, it's true.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much, Barbara.
Mm-hmm.
Um, do the young Navajo generation
Mm-hmm.
know how to weave?
Yes, they're
All of them.
really, they're
Uh,
really, really coming back. For a
mhm,
long, long time, it was just a handful of us, trying to keep it alive, trying to talk about it and stuff. And I'm not really sure what happened. Like maybe 10 years ago, it just exploded, and then, I mean, we have really young weavers who are maintaining a flock of sheep,
mhm,
and they're going back to spinning. They're going back to carding their wool. They're going back old style and putting a modern twist on them, and it's really amazing. We have an organization that gets together in June called the Neveina, and it's the sheep is life,
mhm,
and they held workshops for a whole week, and they teach weaving, spinning, carding,
mhm,
sash belts, moccasin making, jewelry, and all kinds of stuff, all kinds of
mhm,
art and stuff. And then they really put it together, and they really, it's almost like a co-op for Navajo weavers. They all
mhm,
get together and they really push um, mm, for young people to come and participate and you be immersed in Navajo weaving and
mhm,
Navajo culture altogether. They butcher sheep and they cook all
mhm,
everything. They make the delicacies. With the insides and
mhm,
and stuff like that. So yeah, it's a really big
mhm.
celebration that they do. Yeah.
It's awesome. Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much, Barbara. I think it
Mm-hmm.
was our last question.
Okay.
Almost we didn't know how 1 hour passed already. Thank you very much,
Yeah.
Barbara. It was a really interesting presentation. It was very useful to get know about National Native American Heritage Month and particularly Navajo community. Thank you very
Mm-hmm.
much,
Thank
Barbara.
you.
It was wonderful to have you
You're
today.
welcome.
And also
Mm-hmm.
want to say thank you
Yeah.
to our viewers who are
Mm-hmm.
watching us now. See you in our next session. Have a great day and have a
Okay.
great night, Barbara.
Okay.
And
Yeah, Isa, not spoil. Yeah. Thank you very much to
thank you.
everybody. Yeah, and
Thank you
then
very much. Bye
the in
bye.
Kitahaloran, go in peace. Yeah.
Yes, please stay safe
Mm-hmm.
and bye bye, everyone.
Okay. Bye.